So you're looking at a long-term stay in Southeast Asia, and let's be real, Vietnam is probably right at the top of your list. Welcome to this explainer. You already know it's a major focal point for expats, but planning a truly successful relocation? Well, that requires a highly realistic understanding of daily living costs, the legal framework, and your overall financial stability. So today, we're unpacking the Vietnam 2026 Relocation and Cost of Living Blueprint. We are going to look at the real financial, legal, and logistical realities of living in Vietnam right now, using up-to-date data to give you a crystal clear picture. To make sure we get the full picture, we're going to tackle this in 4 quick parts: visas and legal residency, the cost baseline in cities, housing and daily life, and finally, healthcare and future-proofing. Let's dive right in. Part 1. Visas and legal residency. Look, before you even start crunching numbers for a budget, you absolutely have to secure your legal right to stay, right? It's literally the foundation of your entire relocation strategy. Now, looking at the options under Vietnam's immigration law, it can kind of look like alphabet soup, so let's break it down. For short-term stays, the DL Tourist Visa allows up to 90 days. If you're coming over to do business with Vietnam-based enterprises, the DN Business Visa covers you for up to 12 months. Then there's the LD Work Visa that's intended for workers and experts, giving you up to 2 years. But take a look at that bottom row, the DT1 Visa. If you're a major investor bringing significant capital to the table, Vietnam offers an incredibly impressive 10-year validity. That is a massive window of stability if you're bringing major investments into the country. For most of us, establishing yourself legally usually comes down to 2 main pathways. The e-visa is super accessible. You just apply online. It costs somewhere between $25 and $50, and it grants up to 90 days with multiple entries. Simple, right? But for long-term expats, the Temporary Residence Card, or TRC, is the ultimate goal. Depending on your specific category, it's valid for 1 to 10 years, and crucially, it allows you to sponsor your family members, like a spouse or your kids. One thing I have to stress here, whatever you choose, do not overstay. The strict 500,000 Vietnamese dong daily fine is definitely not the kind of expense you want eating into your relocation budget. Compliance is absolutely key here. Moving right along to part 2, the cost baseline and cities. Now let's talk money. Compared to many Western countries, Vietnam still offers a substantially lower overall cost of living. Looking at data from Numbeo, updated from May 2026, let's set up an anchor number to work from: $430.30. This is the estimated monthly cost for a single person living in Vietnam today, entirely excluding rent. When you stop and realize that the overall cost of living in Vietnam is, on average, over 60% lower than what you'd see in the United States, this number becomes incredibly powerful. It just shows how far your baseline capital can actually stretch for your day-to-day needs. But what if you're bringing the family? Well, contrast that single baseline with this figure, $1,554.10. That represents the estimated monthly costs for a family of 4, again, before you factor in housing. It proves that scaling up to a family size is actually highly manageable for a lot of long-term residents, provided you build a realistic, structured budget. So where exactly should you set up shop? As a general rule, larger cities command higher living costs than smaller provincial areas. If we map the cost of living index across 3 major hubs, Ho Chi Minh City sits at the top at 28.1, very closely followed by the capital, Hanoi, at 28.0. But notice Da Nang over there, 26.1. Coastal cities like Da Nang are often viewed as this perfect middle ground option for many long-term residents. You get all the modern amenities, gorgeous coastal living, but with a slightly softer impact on your wallet compared to those 2 major economic powerhouses. Part 3. Housing and daily life. Zooming in from those macro city indexes, let's talk rent, because housing costs vary wildly depending on your location and the style of apartment you want. A 1-bedroom apartment right in the vibrant city center, that averages about 10.3 million VND a month. But watch this. Simply moving outside the central districts drops that average down to roughly 6.7 million VND. That is a dramatic decrease. Some foreigners choose locally styled apartments in these outer districts to keep their monthly costs super low, while others prefer the international-style housing right in the center with all the extra services and amenities. Ultimately, your location and style preferences are going to dictate a massive portion of your budget. When it comes to the day-to-day, food and transportation are highly manageable. Just breaking down a few micro costs, basic monthly utilities for an apartment sit around 1.86 million VND. Unlimited broadband internet, just over 235,000 VND. That is an absolute steal. An inexpensive, delicious meal at a local restaurant is around 50,000 VND, and a bottle of water is less than 8,000 VND. Local markets and transport services are incredibly affordable. But quick reality check, if you're going to rely heavily on imported goods and international lifestyle brands rather than local options, your monthly spending is naturally going to climb. Finally, Part 4, Healthcare and Future Proofing. Especially for residents over 50, as well as families, healthcare is a vital non-negotiable part of a stable long-term budget. You have to know that both your physical and financial health are protected. The really great news here is the quality of medical care. International standard healthcare is readily available at facilities like FB Hospital in Ho Chi Minh City and the nationwide Vinmec health system. Both of these are JCI accredited, which is basically the gold standard for global healthcare safety. They provide high-tech specialties, everything from cardiology to oncology, and importantly for expats, they maintain direct billing partnerships with major insurance providers. So how do you actually secure that care? It's a pretty straightforward process. First, evaluate your specific coverage needs based on your age and health. Second, select a flexible plan. For instance, the Pacific Cross Foundation series is widely used because it allows you to choose your preferred level of outpatient benefits, giving you way more control. And third, secure appropriate coverage. These plans typically offer somewhere between $25,000 to $100,000 USD in coverage, which is highly robust for the region. Ensuring this is locked in protects your hard-earned relocation budget from any unexpected medical shocks. Zooming out for a second to the macro perspective, long-term financial planning means you have to account for inflation and exchange rate fluctuations. Changing rental markets and global economic shifts may affect your monthly expenses over time. But the environment right now is really reassuring. A recent evaluation by the Asian Development Bank noted Vietnam as one of the outstanding economies in the region, specifically thanks to a stable macro foundation. Even amidst global volatility, the economic groundwork here provides a relatively stable environment for your relocation. Because markets and exchange rates naturally fluctuate, the most successful long-term residents prepare flexible budgets rather than relying on rigid fixed estimates. Before you pack your bags, always verify current prices through reliable local sources and official info. Careful preparation and realistic expectations are what actually build a comfortable long-term stay. So I want to leave you with this question to ask yourself today. Is your relocation budget rigidly fixed, or is it flexible enough to actually adapt to whatever 2026 throws your way? Think about it, plan carefully, and your time in Vietnam is going to be all the more rewarding. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.